Hello everyone, welcome back to Same Right Fashion Academy Sew Along Corset project. So today is going to be the sixth part of our project corset sewing. So the last time we learned how to sew a regime boning. That is in part 5. So if you have not watched part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 and part 5 of this sew along project, before you jump into part 6, which is the project we are going to have today, please make sure you must have watched all these videos, because we started this exactly from the scratch. So right now I'm done sewing all my corsets. As you can see, the regime bonings on the front pattern, front piece of this dress, and here I have the back patterns, which I've also sewn my regime boning on it. So you can see how it's puffing up. So I'll just go over to my ironing table and press it down. Okay, I'll use my steam to press it down and my piece of fabric. So I'm setting this aside because it's high time for us to work on the cups. So I come in with my cups right away. This is what I have on the cup part of this pattern we made. So you can see the cup is actually matching up accordingly. So this cup, I'm going over to cut my cup pattern right now. Okay, so remember we also have the lining part. This is the lining part of our corset. I'm setting the bodies aside. So I have my wadding, okay, or feasible fleece, as some people might call it in some countries. So we'll be using the wadding or the feasible fleece to hold on to or to pad our cup. Okay, so that is exactly what we are using to pad this cup. So we are going to pad it right away, as you can see, and this is the shiny part of it and the rough part of it. Okay, so of course I'll not be showing how to do this because I have a detailed video on this channel on how to hairstay and how to pad. Okay, so now my interfacing hairstay, and then my lining and my fabric. So I'm going to cut my patterns. I want to cut pattern 1 cup with my red fabric, and I come in with Ankara to cut the pattern 2, pattern 3 cups. So of course you see how I'm going to do that. So now the first thing I'm going to do is to place my hairstay on my fabric. So once my hairstay is, I've hairstayed the fabric right now, next I will do is to cut and add my necessary seam allowance, and then I'll come in with my wadding and I'll iron them accordingly. So we'll be able to start joining these cups together. So I'll be going to hairstay right now, and I'll be back after cutting my hairstay and my feasible fleece or wadding. Okay, once I'm done, we'll start joining the cups together. Alright, so I'm done cutting my fabric, my lining, my feasible fleece, that is our wadding. So for the first cup styling, you can see I have my wadding all over. I have my fabric, I have my lining, I have two of them, so everything here is 6 pieces. I also did the same right here. I have it all over. As you can see, I have my fabric, I have my lining, I have my feasible fleece. So the next thing I want to do now, I want to work on cup number 1. So I'm working on cup number 1. I'm going to reduce what I have on my wadding, because your wadding shouldn't on the upper part. I'm doing this only on the upper part where we'll be sewing our neckline, so we don't need to have any wadding on the neckline. So I'll just reduce it, but you first of all cut it equally before you reduce. So I'm going to take off 1 inch from the wadding measurement. I'm taking off 1 inch, as you can see. So make sure you take off 1 inch. So I've actually reduced my wadding. So this is what you expected to have. So you'll be able to sew and turn your neckline accordingly. Okay, so that is the adjustment you expected to do here. So coming over here, I'm not reducing anything, I'm working with what I have right away. So I'm going to place my notches on the bust point line. Remember, I told you to place your notches both on fabric and lining and wadding. So I'm putting my notches. So this is going to work. We are going to sew 2 and 3 first. So since I have my notches, I'm taking off my pattern carefully. Can you see that? So I'm taking off my pins. I'm going to take them one after the other. So the first piece I want to sew, I'll match it up like this. I'll match it right on the notch. You can see the notch. Okay, so the part that is supposed to be the upper piece, you can also make notches to the upper piece. So I'll just make small notches on the upper piece. So after sewing this, I will know which part should be for up. So I'm going to set this aside. I'll pick up this and I'm going to match notch to notch. This is exactly how I'm going to sew it once I get to my machine. Okay, so I'll make notches for the upper piece because I need to note the upper piece once I take off my pattern. So I've made my notches. So I'll keep doing this for lining. I'll match up for lining. Okay, so as you can see, so the wadding we have, okay, the lining, that is where we are supposed to sew without our wadding. I'm going to place my waddings right here. Okay, so I'll still make my notches. So I'm just taking my time to do this. These notches indicate the upper piece. So I pick up this notch to notch and secure with my pin on the notch, and I'll make notches to identify upper part of this after I have sewn it. All right, so coming over to the wadding is supposed to be fixed on this. Okay, so you remember this is for this and this is for this. So I'm picking up the wadding parts. I'll separate this. This is the shiny part. It's supposed to touch the shiny part like this before we pin. Okay, so that is what you're expected to do. You need to match up wadding. You can see the notches on the wadding and the notches on the wadding. You can see that the shiny part is on the hairstayed part. Okay, so by the time we iron it, everything matches up accordingly. So I will just put them together because we'll be going to sew them together right now. So make sure you arrange and arrange and arrange. Okay, so you can see me putting them nicely. So once we get to the machine, you see how we do that. So for this is the upper part and this is this. So this is supposed to turn like this, which is the upper part now, and I'm going to lay this like this and like this. Okay, still having my notch on the upper part. You can see my notches, so don't mix them up at all. So all we are doing here is to make sure we match up the right size of the cup before we sew. So I pin them on the knot. So we'll be going to the machine now to sew this. So the same way I sew one of these, that is how I'm going to sew all 2 and 3 which I've pinned. You can see them, I've pinned all of them. So I have 4 of them to sew. Right, so I have all my pieces. Like I said, I have 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, the 4th part. Okay, the 2 for lining and 2 for the left and right bust. So now I want to use this one to show you. So I'll be using this particular cup to show you how I'm going to sew this. Okay, so you can see we have our visible fleece, the shiny part sticking to the part we hairstayed. So I'm going to make sure I align everything. So you can see me aligning it the same way with this. So I just align them accordingly, as you can see. So I'm trying to match them up, and I will also secure it with my pin. Okay, so I'm going to secure it with my pin, and I'll align and secure with my pin. So that is that. So now everything matches up. So I'm going to sew right from this point. You're expected to have this pointy part, because that is how it's cut and is normal. So I'll follow 0.5 inch to sew. So I'll drop my presser foot. I'll start sewing at 0.5. So this is 0.5 inch. So since I've matched it, I'll secure. I'm going to back stitch, and I'll be sewing exactly at 0.5. I'm sewing coming to the bust point. Remember, this part is the bust point. Okay, so once we have sewn to the bust point, now I will raise my presser foot. You can see me raising my presser foot, and I'll drop it back once I've raised. What I'm trying to do is to match up what I have on this, as you can see. Can you see that? So I match up everything I have here, and I'm sewing at 0.5, and I'll sew down and I will back stitch. So right now I'm done sewing, and that is how I'm going to sew each and every one of these curves. You can see the curve going up this way. So now I'm going to sew all of them. I'm going to notch, open up the seams and give it a good press with my tailor's hammer. Then I'll bring it back for you so we can continue. Okay, I don't have enough of this wadding, that is why it didn't get up to, but if you have, you should make sure everything fills up accordingly. So I'm going to iron out this, and I'll bring it back for us to sew the first cup to it. So now you can see I'm done sewing my cups, and I'm giving it a good press. So this is the cup for the right and for the left. That is cup 2 and cup 3. Okay, so if you remember, we have this cup 1 and cup 2 and cup 3, and this is the bust point line. You are supposed to note the center front, very important, and you are supposed to note the side. So you are supposed to make a note of your center front and your sides, so you'll be able to sew this accordingly. So if you open my cup, you can see I later noted the side and the center front before I went ahead and stitched. So make sure you do that. You can see my marker showing center front, because center front is supposed to be at the center front. Okay, so that is how the cup is going to be sewn. And coming to the lining, this is what I have on the lining. I have my notch to show this the upper, and my notch on the lining for the side. So that means this part will be for this, and this will be for this. So make sure you make these notches. These notches are very important for a perfect fit. If you don't have them, you'll be turning the cups upside down, because they actually look the same. So now we want to sew the upper part of this, okay, to complete this corset cup sewing. So I'm taking off my patterns, as you can see right here. I take off this, I pick up one of these, I'll separate the lining, and then this is what I have on my cup. So I'll come in with the feasible fleece. The sticky part of it has to match up with the sticky part of this. So make sure you align this, okay? You remember what we cut off was only on the upper layer. So now I'm going to pin what I have right here. I'll make sure I have it matching up before I pin. So you can see how I'm pinning right here. So now this is the part that will go for this, and this I'll also pin it accordingly. I'll pin it accordingly, as you can see right here. So once I make sure I align the lower part, the upper part, there must be 1 inch which we take off, which we took off at that point, to sew in the neckline. So right here, I'll also repeat the same thing I did here, and this is for this. So I'm going to use this to show you what I'm going to do for this as well. So right now I'm going to sew what I have here. I'm turning it upside down, but before I do that, I'll be putting this together to find the midpoint. This is the midpoint, and I'm going to make a notch. Okay, so I'll just use my pin to hold it down. So at that point, it's either you make your notch or you use your pin to notify that. So I'll just match it up like this, and I'm going to secure this part like this. So I'm going to hold it down with my pin like this, and then match what I have on the upper area like this. You can see how I'm matching it. Then we'll be going to the machine to sew the 0.5. So you can see me sewing at 0.5. So as I'm sewing, I'm doing my best to follow the cups. Okay, so I just take away my pin at this point, so I'll be able to turn my cup the way I want to follow the shape. Okay, so you can see how I'm pushing, making sure I sew this cup accordingly. So I'm matching up fabric to fabric accordingly. Can you see that? I'm matching up, and once you match up accordingly, this is what you're expected to have. You see the pointy parts like that, and it matches up like that. Okay, so that's why you need to add your seam allowances accordingly. So I take off my pins right here, and this is what we will have. All right, so now you can see my cup has been neatly fixed. Okay, so when I sew this, I have this part come out like this. This is exactly how you are supposed to place your upper cup on top of the cup number 1. You must have this for you to sew your cup accordingly. So you can see that, and it comes out like this. So by the time you turn your cup this way, you can see everything matches up right here. So this part will be trimmed off, and this excess will be trimmed off. So that is how to sew your cup accordingly. So now I'm going to give it a good press, and I'm going to repeat this for all of our cups. Okay, so this is how we come to the end of this tutorial. I'll be sewing all the cups the same way I just showed you right now, and I'm going to give it a good press. So if you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this each day. Like this video, share to family and friends, and drop your comments on the comment section, and your suggestions as well. So thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next project. Corset. Bye.